Hey guys, welcome to this finals analysis video. Now, in this one, I'm going to look at one of the examples of violence that happened because of the whole coronavirus outbreak. So COVID-19 is putting everybody on edge, and then you get this kind of thing. So what's going on here? A couple of things you need to know. So there's this elderly lady, she's 67 from what I found out, trying to pay for her groceries in a supermarket in the Netherlands, and this was about a month ago. And we've got our guy over here who is actually taking potting ground from another part of the store, somewhere over here, just outside of the angle of the camera, so we can't really see. And he goes over and back a few times to put it in his shopping cart. Now, at that stage, social distancing is already in effect in the Netherlands. So you're supposed to keep away from the other person, right? So he's totally ignoring that. What happens? The lady is going to say something to the guy along the lines like, hey, dude, keep away, stay away from me, keep some distance, and so on. And apparently, he made a very rude remark, and it turns out that she got upset. And then we see what happens next. So I'm going to roll the video so you guys can see what's going on here. So see the guy's grabbing the potting ground and putting it in his cart. And then he walks over, she says something apparently. He totally ignores her, doesn't care what's going on. He just keeps on doing his thing. And she clearly indicates like, guys, stay away from me, keep your distance. And apparently this is where he says something like, get lost, woman, or apparently it was rude. I don't know what was said. The report didn't indicate it. Now, this is the critical part. So at this stage, she's pretty much done and she can leave the store. I can't tell if it's to the left or the right, but she can leave, right? So she makes a choice. I'm going to get back to this. So she chooses to park herself over here and then wait for the guy to pass to kick him in the butt like she does here. So I'm going to bring the video forward. So notice how she gives herself plenty of space and actually turns towards the guy to face him and to wait until he's got his back turned, going back to his cart, and then kicks him, right? So here we get this. Boom, she kicks him. He immediately reacts by tossing that potting ground into her face and she falls down. I'm going to rewind that a little bit so you get to see the dynamic again. Now, the whole point of this is that this is an interaction that could have been avoided by both parties. This is not about placing blame. This is about understanding the dynamic that is involved. That is something else. It's different. Blame is something else. You can blame whoever you want. I'm talking about what's going on and how you can prevent this happening to yourself. So once again, notice at this stage, she can walk away. What is the advice we always give people when it comes to self-defense? Walk away, avoidance, de-escalation, and so on. What happens is that apparently the elderly lady got upset and she just takes her time, lines up the shot, and then kicks him in the ass. Okay, so you can see that obviously there is no real danger. He looks like a big, strong guy. She's 67, she's small, she's frail. She's very unlikely to do any real damage. So was he in a life-threatening situation? I think we can reasonably assume he was not. She was not a lethal threat to him, especially with that weak kick. Now also notice that he is not even off balance. He just takes another step forward, braces, and then launches that potting ground at her. Now, we get to talk about self-defense. Self-defense has legal implications, meaning that you can use force to defend yourself, but there are considerations that you have to take into account. And in most countries, Western countries around the world, there is one of the qualifiers along the lines of your defense needs to be proportionate to the attack. Okay, look at this guy. I mean, he's a big, strong guy. She's a small woman. She's 67. If she weighs half of what he weighs, that's going to be a lot. And he is just throwing this heavy object at her. Is that proportionate? In my opinion, when this goes to court, and I hope it does, then the judge is going to say like, dude, you should be ashamed of yourself. Because he just tosses that at her. I mean, he just doesn't hold back. He just throws it right at her, and you can see she falls, right? So this is just launching it at her. She tries to put her hand up, but that doesn't help. Obviously, that's fairly heavy, getting a bunch of potting ground tossed at you like that. So, and she's 67. Somebody who's 67, you're not expecting them to be able to just handle this like, okay, this is no big deal. I'll just hold it out with one hand, grab that pudding ground and toss it back at him. That's not going to happen. So you also see that here she falls. Okay, we don't see what happens. Now, this is the kind of fall, again, one of the primary reasons why elderly people end up in horrible pain of that in the end of their lives is because they do a bad fall. They break a hip, they break something else, and they never truly recover. And as of that point in time, they are less mobile, they have less options in their life, they need assistance and so on. And this is a horrible way to go. You don't want that. That is what he is risking causing to her with his violent action here. So the way she falls here, if she slams her head on or the back of her head on the floor, that could lead to brain trauma or worse, death. So there's a lot of potential dangers here. There are so many examples of somebody falling like that on the floor and it ending extremely badly. So this is not uncommon that if somebody falls like that, hits the back of the head on the floor, that they end up in a coma or worse. So especially when you have somebody who's elderly, that they don't have the same resilience nor the strength to catch themselves. Now, does this always happen? No, of course not. But it does happen fairly frequently. I've done a ton of videos about this in the past where you can see the exact thing happening. And actually to young people and young strong guys actually, and they don't make it out alive, let alone an elderly person. So the whole point here is that this is not proportionate. A good lawyer in this case, I think could make a case against this guy here and claim that he's actually using lethal force against the elderly lady by attacking her that way. So, and all that over what is something that could have been avoided. Now, we get to the other part. So when you look at the whole situation here, do you have the right when somebody puts you at risk in the whole corona crisis that we have right now, when the whole point of social distancing is that you need to stay away, you need to keep a certain distance. If somebody ignores that, and they have relatively little space that they leave and they come close to you, do you have the right to say something about that, act, and so on? Of course you do. That's not the issue. The issue is that what type of action is going to bring you closer to your goal, which is to be safe. Now, if the whole point of making somebody back off so they don't come too close to you, if the whole point is so that you don't get sick, you don't get infected, which would negatively affect your health, well, how does turning that into a fight, which potentially negatively affects your health, how does doing that achieve the goal of staying healthy? You see the logic chain here. You make a remark on somebody to keep away from you so you don't get the virus potentially, and then you get into a fight and you end up getting slammed to the floor by having pudding ground tossed at your face. How does that achieve your goal? It doesn't. So speaking about the actions of the elderly lady, this doesn't bring her closer to her goal. Can you talk about, is he justified in saying something? I think you can. I think that is a very reasonable response when you are in such a situation here where the government has said you need to keep your distance, everybody, social distancing. This is clearly communicated that at that point when somebody ignores that and puts you at risk, you are, in my opinion, well within your rights to comment on that. That is one aspect. However, the way you do that, as in all things, is going to affect the results you get. So he is being rude, apparently. He's insulting her. Okay, so every single time somebody insults you, you get to kick them? Is that how it works? No, it doesn't. That's not self-defense. Again, self-defense is something that the law in the country you live in will describe very clearly what that means. And if there's an issue with how you did it, then you're going to end up in court and lawyers get to decide the details. But there are clear guidelines. Now, is this woman being attacked when she chooses to kick this guy? No, she's not. She's not being attacked. So, by definition, there is no self-defense. So the legal ground for her to kick the guy in the butt like she does here, I don't think it exists. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think it exists. I don't think a judge will say, lady, You were justified in kicking that guy. You're not. Now, on the other side, the actions of the guy, he's an idiot. He's a freaking idiot. If you look at everything that's going on here, I mean, the lady is checking out. She's grabbing her stuff. She paid for everything. She is on her way out. She's leaving the store. And it's going to take what? Maybe 30 seconds until she's out of there. All he has to do is wait for another 30 seconds and he can grab as much pottery ground as he likes. And in many stores over here in Europe, it's very, very easy. You're just like, hey, I'm going to grab like 5 of these pottery ground bags. Okay. And then the cashier is just going to add that to your bill and you're just fine. It's not going to be a big deal. But he absolutely needs to get his pottery ground right away. He doesn't want to wait. And the lady, screw her, social distancing, I don't care. She just has to shut her mouth. And when he gets called upon his behavior, which he isn't supposed to do, then he gets aggressive and he is verbally rude to her. Well, does that justify getting your ass kicked? Of course not. That's not the issue. But his reactions and to the reaction of her on his action of grabbing that potting ground and coming close to her, that is the escalation. That is what makes everything escalate into a conflict. Now, did he need to be rude to her? Nope. He could have ignored her, which is easy to do, or he could have said, excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry, I'll just grab this and I'll be out of your way. Or I'll make sure that I turn my back to you so I'm not breathing anywhere close to you. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could have done that other than waiting, which would have been the polite thing to do. There's so many ways to handle that. So he has a fairly important part to play here in why it escalated. Now, bringing this further, once we get to this part, again, she kicks him. Okay, his immediate reaction is violence. So he is annoyed as well. So he is walking by, she kicks him, and you can see he plants on his lead foot, he finishes his step, a second later, he's tossing that pottery ground at her. So there is no compromise, there is no de-escalation, it's just immediate violent action, potentially injuring that woman. She wasn't really badly injured from what I've read, so it turns out she was relatively fine. Point is, that's not how it works. That is not how self-defense works. If you choose to use what is in this case potentially considered a weapon, because you're tossing a heavy object at somebody who, very reasonably speaking, you should expect that they will be unable to catch that, and you know that they might get injured, well, then that's considered a weapon. Does that attack that he suffers, that weak kick that doesn't even break his balance, that it looks like he hardly even noticed pain-wise, does that merit the response, the violent response from his part? I think not. In my opinion, that in front of a judge in the Netherlands is not going to fly either. So her actions and his actions tended to escalate the situation as opposed to de-escalate. Here's the point of this video. This type of behavior, this type of emotional, primitive reactions are entirely normal in a situation like the one we're living in right now, where everybody is on edge. A lot of people, this kind of new world that they woke up in, all of a sudden, they're very unfamiliar. So a lot of old rules that they thought were always going to apply don't apply anymore. And a lot of people are now out for themselves and they don't care. So at the same time, when everybody is on edge like this and society is changing rapidly in the way that we interact with each other, and everybody is very stressed because they might lose their job, they might have somebody, that woman might have a husband at home who has COVID-19 and who needs help. That guy might actually be out of a job, and he's going to have to grow his own vegetables because he won't have enough money to feed his family. So I'm just making stuff up, but the point is that there might be reasons why both parties are extremely on edge, valid reasons. Now, those reasons can lead to people acting irrationally and impulsively and violently on both sides. It's not about who was the most effective at violence. That's not the issue. Because substitute the elderly woman by a woman in her early 30s who's been doing CrossFit for 10 years and she's in really good shape. Would that be okay if he tossed that pudding stall at her? Or would it be okay if she kicked him and she's much stronger than this elderly lady? Or substitute that elderly lady by a guy who's the same size and the same strength as the guy throwing the pudding ground. Would it be okay then? See what I mean? So it's the principle of the thing. It's not the details. Now the details matter to a court, but the point is that the dynamic of the situation, it doesn't really matter who's doing what. The dynamic is what I think you should focus on so that you can avoid that. So when you go out and about, when you're doing your shopping and so on, understand that you are on edge, very likely, even if it's at a subconscious level, and the other people are very likely on edge too. That is a powder keg. It's very easy for everybody just to blow up all of a sudden and release the tension that has been building for weeks or even months on end because the world is going crazy around us. So the big safety tip here is that if you notice that you are on edge, or if you don't notice, how about making it a habit before you go out to just kind of do a quick mental check of yourself. Okay, am I nervous? Am I anxious? Am I getting stressed out a little bit and so on? Just do a quick check on yourself. How are you doing before you interact with random strangers? And if you notice that you're on edge, maybe do whatever you need to calm down a little bit, or at the very least focus and know that, okay, I am much more likely to be irritated a lot quicker than normal and get into these kinds of situations. And try to avoid them. Try to de-escalate, try to get out of there. You want to be safe and sound back home as quickly as possible. You don't want to end up in fights in the supermarket or in the parking lot of the supermarket or anywhere else. All right, that's it, guys. I hope you find this one useful. I've got more stuff on Patreon, so I'll see you guys there. Take care. Bye-bye.